Thinking about self-publishing and don't know where to start? Join the Spa Girls each week for 30 or 40 or 50 minutes of honest advice, tips and resources. I'm Trudy J.
I'm Shah Barrett.
I'm Cheryl Phipps.
And I'm Wendy Bella.
And welcome back to the Spa. And this week we have a fascinating guest. I'm super excited to welcome Lilian Sue, who is a PR expert for authors. So we're going to pick her brains about all the kind of things we need to be doing for our own PR as authors in our self-publishing careers. But first, I'm going to read your bio, Lilian, and then we will get right into it. So Lilian Sue is a long-time publicist and PR coach with nearly a decade of experience dedicated to empowering creative entrepreneurs with the right tools and resources to build their own PR campaigns. Seeing her clients have the confidence to bust past mindset blocks to become industry leaders and achieve their goals is why Lilian loves doing what she does. Welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm super excited. So how did you get into doing PR for writers in particular? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. Yeah, I actually started off in copywriting and social media, and I had a lot of solopreneurs and entrepreneurs coming to me and going, "Hey, do you offer PR as well?" And I got tired of telling them no. Right? I got tired of telling them no, and I said, "You know what? Let's jump into this a little bit. Let's try it. Let's, if I can do this, then I have that on my resume. I have that in my skill set." And I started working with authors in particular because I noticed a lot of indie authors in particular having trouble getting beyond a certain threshold. They'd be like, "Oh, I can do, 20 some odd pre-orders," and then it stagnates. Mm-hmm. Right? They keep promoting on social media and they're wondering why people aren't buying and everything. And with this demographic, this audience in particular, I was also hearing a lot of, "I would love to hire you for a campaign, but I can't afford it." Mm. So I sat back and I went, there's got to be a better way for me to work with these amazing writers and these great people who have great books coming out, and not have it all just be about me doing a campaign for them. Mm. So then I thought, what about the educational piece? I've been doing this for a chunk of years now. There's a lot that I know that a lot of these folks don't know. And it's pretty clear every time I talk to them, they don't really understand where it fits next to social media marketing, next to paying for ads on Facebook and things like that. So how can I go about educating people on it first? Mm-hmm. Because a lot of the resistance, a lot of the expectations, a lot of the beliefs that I kept coming up against with clients and prospective clients were there because they had their own preconceived notions about what it is, what it could do for them. And they didn't really understand how to let go of it because they didn't have that educational piece. So I started offering PR coaching as a more personalized way in individual sessions to help authors kind of answer the questions that they have. Yeah. "Hey, we have an hour. Where are you stuck? How can I help? Talk to me, tell me what's going on with, what it is that you're trying to do." And on top of that, I created a PR course that I actually incorporated personalized coaching sessions into. So as they're going along and learning all the different building blocks to launching a PR campaign, I didn't want to be one of those instructors where, you email me and you're waiting a couple days to hear back. Yeah. It's like, "Hey, you get stuck? Book a coaching call with me and we'll actually talk it through. Mm-hmm. Where are you with the worksheets? Where are you with the resources? Where are you stuck so I can help you out of that?" Like having that personalized support for me and giving that to my clients is really important because although there is a generalized framework to PR, which we'll get into, every author has specific needs and specific goals that they want. And the challenge in utilizing something like PR is figuring out how to personalize that so it can meet the goals that you want to meet.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So if we take it back a step and what is PR? Like what it's public relations, right? So what does it actually encapsulate? What are we talking about when we talk about PR?
PR is, in a nutshell, the most cost-effective way to build third-party credibility for your business and learn how to develop name recognition and a reputation as a global industry leader. And within PR is kind of the umbrella term. There's several different areas that entrepreneurs can focus on. There's paid media, which is doing sponsored ads and sponsored articles in different magazines and things like that. And then there's crisis communications, which a lot of brands will employ in the event that there is a negative situation that comes up that can affect their brands online. And then there's the three areas that I focus on the most with my clients. Owned media, which is incorporating your blog, your email newsletter, that sort of thing. Earned media, which is everything having to do with media relations. So booking interviews, scheduling reviews, inviting media to attend events, that sort of thing. And thought leadership, which is developing a strategy where you write guest posts for different industry blogs and websites. You get invited to run a workshop. You get invited to speak on a panel at a conference, that sort of thing. So really with my clients, I tend to focus more so on the last couple of areas of owned media, earned media, and thought leadership.
It's fascinating.
It is.
Okay, that's a good breakdown. I didn't sort of realize about the different areas, so that's cool. So what is the goal of doing PR then? Why are we going out there and doing interviews and trying to do thought leadership and all the different things? What's the point?
Well, going back to the definition that I mentioned, where it is the most cost-effective way to build third-party credibility. Why do you want to do that? Well, the media, they each have their own platforms. They have their own reputations that they've cultivated. They have their own audiences that they've cultivated. And PR is a way to build third-party credibility through them, because they have decided to support you, to support your book, to support the key messages that you're sharing, to support you as an author and as a person. And they build that credibility because they are not related to you. You're not paying them for it. They are doing it because they go, hey, this resonates with me as a host, as a producer, as a writer, and I think it will resonate with my audience as well. And as for why an author would want to do this, well, there's several different reasons why. Everyone knows by now that in order to get the word out about anything that you're working on, you have to promote it. So how do you do that? You do social media, you do email marketing. Some folks have a website, some people don't, right? But all of that it's coming out of the horse's mouth, right? So everything that you put out in terms of content there is coming directly from you. That's great. That's where they're going to get the most accurate information. But do you know what's more powerful than you doing it? It's having someone who believes in your book and in your projects and in you as a writer doing it on your behalf. Now, that's not to say that any social media audience you build can't do that for you. It does happen, but it can only extend so far. So if you want to do things like, hey, I really want to present at such and such conference, or I really want to run my own workshop, or I really want to be able to manage and put together my own book tour. If you go to apply for these things, one of the first things that's going to come out of the organizer's mouth is, what's your experience with this? Have you done this before? Have you done an interview before? Have you been featured in different conferences? Have you, had experience doing this type of thing before? And they need that social proof in order to take a chance on you, because there are thousands and thousands of people who do what you do. So I say this to clients all the time. I've said this in workshop presentations I've given. What you do is not unique. How you do it and why you choose to do it is what's key. That's what's going to make your story as an author stand out to everybody else. So when you talk about why would somebody want to do PR, well, it comes down to, what are your goals, right? In addition to wanting to have those workshops, wanting to be featured in those conferences, do you have specific goals on how many books you want to sell 3 months, 6 months, a year down the road? I always say to people, just saying you want to sell more books isn't good enough, because we all want to do that.
Yeah.
True.
Very true.
Right. You need to get more specific on, what do I actually want out of this? It's like, okay, I've pushed it out the door. It's out there for the world to see. I didn't write this just for nobody to buy it.
Yeah.
So now the question becomes, how do I get get the word out on a larger global scale? That's the power that media outlets have, that, your social media audience and your email newsletter can only go so far with, because media outlets, again, have that reputation that they themselves have cultivated, and they have that audience that comes to them seeking that specific content, seeking viewpoints about that content, and wanting to learn more and support people who put that type of content out.
So that all sounds terrifying to me as an introverted author who doesn't like to put myself out there. So but you talk about building a healthy PR mindset, and how a lot of PR is about your mindset and how you put it forward. So could you talk about that, how we kind of go, oh, it's fine, I can do all this, no worries?
I touch upon mindset and PR every Monday. That's kind of my theme on social media. So all my audience knows that I deal with everything from stress and anxiety to imposter syndrome to frustration. And I walk them through, it's like, picture this scenario. You are putting together your first PR campaign, and you've sent out some pitches and you're not getting responses. Meanwhile, indie author friend in England is getting a ton of interviews. They're booking the book signings and everything. So then people start to, and I've seen this with authors I talk to all the time, internalize it and go, why isn't my strategy working? It must be me. It must be because my project's not worthy. I'm not worthy of being supported. I don't know what I'm doing. And the people that I've sent this out to know that. So I say to clients, and I say to my audience, okay, you're feeling that. You're in that right now. How do you get out of that? So I develop mantras to help them get out of that by reminding them, hey, if you just started, there is always time. There is always time for you to not only send out the next round of pitches, but revise things. Look at, okay, let's say today I've just pitched podcasts. I still have room to maneuver around different websites, different radio shows, different blogs. There's still room for me to maneuver. And if someone else is getting success, it's not that my strategy, that there's something wrong with it or that they got lucky. It's the fact that they've built a strategy that works for them. So I need to look at my strategy and see if there are moving parts that I can correct, I can revise, I can redo to better match the goals that I want to succeed in. One of the big things that come with talking to authors and working with them is a lot of fear surrounding PR and marketing. And a lot of that fear comes from the fact that they feel like there's so much to do. There's so much to do, and they feel like they don't know where to start, and that they don't feel like they have enough time to learn. So it's those three things I come across a lot. And I say to them, you know, just like doing anything else, when it comes to marketing, the way that you've built your social media strategy, you end up doing very similar things with PR. Remember, take it one step at a time, one section at a time. So in all my content, I always lay it out in terms of what the building blocks are. I say, you know, first of all, what is your goals for this? What are your goals for this? And what it is that do you want to accomplish with it in general? 3 months, 6 months, a year, break down your goals that way. Once you've done that, then it's about positioning yourself to get to those goals. And by positioning, I mean really digging deep and getting introspective into what inspired you to become a romance author. You know, what motivates you to do it? Was there somebody who supported you on how to do it? What is it about the stories that you've written that are important to you? And how do you want to convey that so that you are presenting yourself the right way? I mean, I have clients who, because they are of Latin American heritage, that's where their romance stories are set. I have other clients who, you know, I work with sci-fi authors who have dealt with sobriety in their lives. And because that's important to them, sobriety is a theme in their books. You know, how do you explain the story around that? Like if somebody was to come to you and ask you not just what your book's about, but, you know, what was it that made you want to pull that trigger? Because for the most part, most of the authors that I work with are people that have started writing later in life. They started writing when they were in the middle of college, or they started writing once, you know, they were married and had kids. Why now as opposed to earlier, right? So a lot of that fear comes from like, oh God, I don't know what to tell people. And B, you know, do I have to take all of this on at once? And I always tell them, go slow, because you have time. There is so much emphasis, I think, with good reason, but there is so much emphasis placed on the fact that you need to do a big marketing push leading up to a launch. And once that launch is over, then your window of opportunity is closing. Everything's going to slow down. There's no point in going further than that. I teach my clients that it's often helpful to keep that momentum going. Because the more that a lot of times what happens is after the initial launch dies down, then the author feels like they're running out of content to share. It's like, I don't really know what to talk about unless my book is on sale, you know, and then it becomes repetitive of buy my book, it's on sale, buy my book, it's on sale. And, you know, that can backfire on you, because I said, like, what you don't realize is that your audience is fluid. The people that were there months before your release are not necessarily just the same people that were there months after your release. Everybody's going to end up having a touch point on your book at different times of the year, different times of your campaign. So it's actually a blessing to have like a review go live after your launch, to have an interview come out, to team up with an author friend of yours and go, hey, I'm just going to do an Instagram live about, what inspired my particular male hero in my book. And when you do things like that, you're always reaching new people. I think there is this mindset, this belief that the momentum just stops after your launch, and it doesn't have to be that way. You can continue moving forward, but the key to doing that and to building a healthy mindset is to A, figure out what your goals are, B, figure out how you're comfortable positioning yourself and actually sharing that genuine, authentic story, and C, allowing yourself to take each building block one at a time and to go slow with it. And just be gentle with yourself, and don't beat yourself up on not maybe progressing as fast as other authors, because everyone's timetable is different. Everyone's release schedule is different, and everyone's goals in terms of what they want to accomplish, immediately versus later down the road, that's also different.
Yeah.
So I'm always telling clients and also authors who follow me, take it one day at a time, one section at a time. And and then they say to me, well, when I get to the nitty gritty of it, when I'm actually working on different parts of the strategy, how do I prevent myself from burning out? And I tell them, if you're working on writing out your biography or something, if half an hour today is all you can spare, that's great. You're still making progress. Nobody says you have to chain yourself to your desk, for 8 hours a day working just on marketing. Even a little bit can help you get a little bit farther ahead than you were the day before. It's the same thing with researching who you want to contact. It's the same thing with actually emailing these people. If you don't want to sit there and fire off 50 emails a day, nobody says you have to. Make it easier on yourself and just do 5. Even 5 is great, because 5 today is more than you did the day before. So it's really about sitting down and really getting clear on what you want to do with it, what your goals are, how you want to position yourself, and being willing to just take it one step at a time.
I think there'll be a lot of very relieved authors listening to this at the moment. I love that. It's something that, we've said, but it's something that we need to remind ourselves of a lot, isn't it? There's so much noise, and it's very hard not to feel that you're kind of behind the people ahead of you.
Yeah.
And also, I think we'll record that, and I'm going to have it in my REM sleep. It goes over and over again during the night. That's
lucky for you, we are recording it, Wendy. So it's fine. So Lilian, if we've got all that, we have the right mindset, and we're calm, and we're okay with everything. If you're just someone who's never done any PR at all, what are your first steps? Where do you start? How do you create a strategy?
I think it also starts with setting your expectations. And I say this because I've encountered quite a few authors and also creative entrepreneurs that have the expectations that whether they are doing their own PR or they're hiring a publicist or PR firm to work with them on it, there is this impression that somehow there is a guarantee of results, right? Like if I put X amount of dollars into this, then I'm going to get an interview here, or I'm going to be able to do the talk show circuit in the US, or I'm going to be able to land an interview with New York Times, right? So many people come into that with lofty expectations. And if they don't have any PR experience, I say to them, you know, if you go from 0 to 60 on a whim, and you have no experience doing interviews, you have no experience how to manage yourself live and in studio and things like that, what you don't want to end up happening is fumbling through an answer when you are on the couch with Jimmy Fallon, because that's going to haunt you. That stuff is going to go viral. You don't do yourself or your projects any favors by thinking that is the first, last, and only stop when it comes to PR. To build up your experience, to build up your level of comfort, to build up your knowledge, it's much better to look at it from a standpoint of, okay, this is what I want to do. Now, how am I going to build a strategy to get there? Well, there are things that you need when I speak about the building blocks. You need to have your media kit, and that is your high resolution photos, your biography, any sort of visual, interactive, engaging assets that paint your book in the right light. I mean, I've seen romance authors do incredible things, from character trailers to even like letters that are written in their characters' voices and things, just to get people more excited, right? That's really key. Once you have that, then it's a matter of, okay, what am I actually going to tell people? When I reach out to the media, what am I actually going to tell them about my book and about me? And that this part can get really challenging, because when you're sending out these emails, they're not going to read a 12-page thesis, right? So how are you going to narrow down what the elevator pitch is for your book, who you are as an author, and then maybe a quote on how you feel about the book or why you wrote it, plus some links on where they can buy it. And that's it. How are you going to outline that? After the media kit and the pitches are done, then it's the list, which is something a lot of my clients have stumbling blocks on, because they're like, I have no idea whatsoever how to find the right people, how to, you know, I'm worried about burning out doing this kind of research because it's not something I usually do. And I just don't know where to look. So I say to them, you know, chances are, if you are active on social media and you have an audience, there's already folks there who will review romance books. Reach out, develop that relationship with them, and start talking. You know, maybe, you know, if you don't previously have a connection with them, don't pitch them your book right away, but just start talking to them and get to know them. And that forms your basis of, where am I going to start looking for the right people? When it comes to building a media list for everybody that wants the major media outlets, you know, BBC, all of those guys, I say to them, if you don't have experience, the best way to practice getting experience and getting comfortable is to reach out to your genre specific media. So in the case of romance, who's out there when you look up romance podcasts, when you look up romance book reviewers, when you even look into your own audience and see, hey, who reads a lot of romance? It's these folks And these media platforms that are going to help you get comfortable with sending your books out for review, with answering key interview questions, and really learning the ins and outs of, how to book an interview. What happens after it's done? How am I going to share it when it goes live? All of these things. It's less intimidating if you choose to start small. So I always say, focus on what your genre is. And once you are comfortable with that, then you can expand and go, who's in my local media, like in my city or in my state or my province, that would be willing to support someone like me, or that has supported someone like me. And on top of that, I actually mentioned this in a workshop presentation I did recently. How do you go beyond that and incorporate some of the themes of your book? There's what I call the hidden opportunities when it comes to media outreach, where there are a lot of groups, professional associations and things like that you can reach out to, who might be interested in having you come to do a talk, who might be interested in reviewing your book, who might be interested in actually pulling together an event with you to talk about some of the more important things and themes surrounding relationships, surrounding love, surrounding physical intimacy. I know that there are romance authors and other authors that I talk to on a daily basis that support things like domestic violence awareness. How do you, build rapport and relationships with people who work in that sphere, and develop events, opportunities for workshops, opportunities to, they could feature you on their blog, on their email newsletter, to get the word out about why you wrote this book and why it's important. So I think the key to really starting out is figuring out what you want out of each one of those building blocks, and how to find the right people. And once you found the right people, pacing yourself when it comes to doing that outreach for them. And then as you hear back from them and start scheduling more of these media opportunities, your reviews, your interviews, that sort of thing. I have clients come to me in a panic and go, like, I'm not comfortable on camera, I'm not comfortable in person, I don't know how to get comfortable. And I tell them that the key to that is the 2 P's, practice and preparation. When you get an interview, you have an idea of who that person is, what their platform is. You can go back and kind of listen to or watch or read the types of interviews they've done in the past to kind of gain that knowledge so that you know what to expect. And then you prepare by getting used to talking about your book. And, you can do this in a variety of ways. I always encourage people to, if you're not comfortable talking to somebody about it, do it in front of the mirror. Mm. Do it in front of the mirror, or like occasionally, what I've done is I've said to clients, I walk around the house talking to myself all the time as it is. So why not, record yourself answering some of these questions and see how you do. Yeah. Right? This is how you get comfortable.
It's so interesting that you say that, because I when I think about it, like someone says, oh, can you talk about your book? And you go, oh, that'll be easy. It's my book. I know all about it. And then you go and try to do it. You actually try to get the words out, and you're like, it's a thing and there's some people, and then they do this other thing. And it just sounds terrible unless you've practiced. And you've kind of have an idea of that. It's just, it sounds like such a little small thing, but I think it's actually really important, actually. Anyway, sorry, so that's a really good point. That's why I just wanted to interrupt your flow to tell you that. I had another question. So the other thing about talking about your books and talking, like finding those topics is actually mining into the themes of books. And you're kind of talking about that a little bit, you know, someone who has domestic violence and maybe in their book, and that's something they can be talking about. And that's sometimes maybe easier said than done, like we're too close to our books, but maybe finding someone else who's read the book to kind of give suggestions as well for that kind of thing might help. Would you suggest that kind of thing? Are there any other ideas or other things that you tell your clients about how to figure out those topics that are going to be relevant?
Yeah, it definitely helps to solicit opinions from your audience, which is also a great way to actually get them into your campaign. Because instead of so much of marketing and promotion is you telling people things, right? So in doing this kind of outreach and going like, you know, even just asking them simple questions about like, what do you think the themes of my book are? And how I can develop conversations around that is a great way to get your audience into the campaign, because you're asking them for their opinions, their inputs, and they're more engaged that way, right? Even doing things like another part that you can incorporate into a PR campaign a lot of the times is contests. You know, contests, other events that you pull together where you ask people to share their stories. These are all tidbits that you can use in your story pitch to reach out to the media, because so many of them too get a lot of requests for book reviews, a lot of requests for interviews from indie authors and everything. To make yours stand out, you're not just relying on the merits of your book blurb. I'm sure it's fantastic, but so is everybody else's. So in soliciting help from your audience and to just go, you know, what do you think the conversation should be around in relation to this? They feel more involved, they feel more engaged, and they actually want to participate, because then it's not just a matter of you always telling them things, right? So I always, like, when I'm brainstorming with clients, it's always about, you know, where are you stuck? And more often than not, when I'm having that coaching conversation with them, they'll sit back and go, wow, like that didn't even cross my mind that I could do that.
Yeah.
And I said, you know, this is, as a coach, this is what I'm here for, is to help give you that outside perspective on, you know, these are the different ways that you can build a very compelling, very multifaceted campaign for your book that's going to help set you up to reach those higher profile outlets eventually, you know, to do the talk show circuit, to do New York Times, BBC, wherever it is that you want to go. Because then they're going to see that, hey, this person has a ton of experience. They've pretty much done everything under the sun in regards to events, workshops, conferences, interviews, like they're all over the place. We should have them on. Right. It is a dream of literally everybody I talk to. And actually it's one of mine as well. I'm actually working on my first draft for my adult contemporary romance right now, my first one. It is our dream to end up on the New York Times bestseller list. Everybody wants that. That is the top of the book marketing mountain. But it is, getting up there is not an overnight thing. And once you're up there, you can't just rely on that one opportunity to stay there. So it's also about, when you are doing all of these different things to build a multifaceted campaign, how are you going to keep the consistency coming? To use marketing terminology, I always say, stay top of mind with your audience, because as I mentioned earlier, your audience is subject to change and grow constantly.
Yeah.
Somebody who comes to you and sees your book on social media today, hasn't been with you, the last week or the past 6 months or the past year. So how are you going to stay consistent in building those relationships and continuing to get the word out there? And I think the other misnomer about something like this, people seem to think is like, oh, I got to do it every day. I have to grind on it every day, nose to the grindstone. And it's like, it's taking time away from my writing. It's taking time away from revisions I have to do. And I say, consistency is up to you on how you want to define it.
Yeah.
For me, with my clients and the people I try to engage with on a daily basis, it's I post 5 days a week. I'm on there every single day talking to people, but I do that because that works for me and my business. For authors that I talk to, I say, so much of how we feel and the mindset blocks is conditioned by what we see everyone else doing. So if an author in your genre is on Instagram 4 days a week, they're posting like crazy, they've got a ton of engagement, everybody feels forced to do that themselves. And I always remind them to take a step back and really look at it. Is this going to serve you in the long term? Or are you just going to burn out and go, I can't touch that now for 6 months. I can't do it. What is going to serve you better, to copy someone else's strategy or to figure out what consistency means to you and how you choose to define it? If that means you're only on there twice a week, then so be it. If you're on there twice a week, make the most out of those 2 times, right? I think so much of the resistance is because in addition to not knowing how it works and being afraid of being seen as somebody who doesn't know how it works, the other part of it is that they feel like they have to keep up with everyone else. And that's just not the case. It is really up to you, and I say this to clients all the time, how you want to define that. And you always, always, always have time.
Yeah. And that's going back to that story you were talking about not looking at other people and judging how they're doing by what you're doing. It's that whole, it's your journey, it's your own journey, and what you can put in is what you can put in, and don't judge yourself by others, because that's the way you go crazy as an author. Because I really like that point about burnout. That's actually like, think now about what you're capable, what you can fit into your time. And if that's going to burn you out, don't do it. Or be reasonable about what you can do. That's awesome. So you talked about, I was really interested before, very beginning, you talked about if you've emailed or sent out requests for things, or you've made some progress on your attempts at PR, and then you get rejections. And we don't say that it's our sales, but what do you do? How do you revise? Like, how do you know whether it's maybe something that you can revise in the email that you're sending out, or maybe it's just the wrong time for the people you're sending to? Or is it just, you just have to learn and just keep going? Like, how does that work?
I think when you get a rejection, in addition, like the first thing being that you really shouldn't take it personally. It's a matter of looking at what they wrote in the rejection, because a lot of times they will tell you straight out that it's not the right time, or check back in a couple months because our schedule for interviews is full. So they'll be honest with you about that, so you have an idea of like, okay, it's a no-go right now, but I'll circle back in a couple months. In other cases, they'll just say, sorry, not interested. So depending on, how big your list is, or, whether, if it's something that's really important to you, because we all have, in building a list, there's the outlets that we'd really love to be featured in, and then there's ones that are like would be nice to, and then there's others that are like, if I get this one or not, it's not a huge deal right now. It's just, it would be nice to get it, but if I don't, it's not the end of the world. If you can build in that time on, okay, I did my research going into this, I know who they've covered or what types of topics they've covered, going up to my pitch, leading up to my pitch. So I have an idea of like, it's not that it's not a good fit. It's just for whatever reason, they're not interested right now. So sometimes it's a bit of a judgment call on, should I revise it? I mean, if, for example, you've tried to reach out to an outlet 5 times and that's the response you get, I would probably suggest leaving it alone for now and moving on to, you know, another podcast or blog or website. But if it's, you know, maybe the first couple times and it's one that you really want, it might be worth going back into your pitch and asking yourself, okay, is there something I can do that'll make this more compelling? Like, is there, you know, have I been shortlisted for an award? Am I, you know, running a contest for the book? Am I putting on an event with it that would actually grab their attention a bit more than just, you know, would you like to review my book? So a lot of the times it is a judgment call, just kind of based on where you're at in the process. And sometimes, in some cases, no matter how many times you follow up on a pitch, because it is standard practice that it's really rare that you'll get a response the first time you send out a pitch. It's good practice to follow up. Usually I tell clients once a week at the most, just to make sure they got the email, see if they have any questions. In many cases, you might not hear back, even in using that formula. So in that case, just move on. Just move on, and, you know, keep them on your list for the next one. I've had, in doing a couple hundred campaigns now for clients, I've had media requests come back around literally months later. I haven't spoken to someone in months, and then they'll come back and go, hey, I just, you know, like, I've been away or this, that, or the other, and I've just come across the request that you sent months ago. Is your client still willing to, you know? So then I would go back to my client and go, hey, like, you know, this person sent, are you willing to send them a copy for review? And they said, hey, let's do it. Right. So there's always these kinds of variables where you try to do a campaign kind of set on your own schedule. Like I mentioned earlier, you want to do everything you can to make sure the launch is a good one. But if there are requests and opportunities and things that go live after the launch, this is a great opportunity to keep your book top of mind and to stay, you know, in the audience consciousness that, hey, even though my book is already out, I still have exciting things planned. I'm still working on all these different things. It's not just about my book going on sale. And in all my years, if there's one thing that I've learned, and I tell clients this all the time, you never know where that request for coverage or for an interview is going to come from. I am, you know, I've been in this business 15 years, and I am still consistently surprised of who's going to come out and go, hey, like, I'd love to, you know, review the book, or I'd love to have your client out for an interview. And that's the beauty of it. That is the opportunity in it, in that it can literally come from just about anywhere.
Yeah. And you just, the point is that you never know what's going on at the other end. Assuming that it's something to do with you and your pitch is actually very no, I don't mean self-centered, but I mean it like as in you're thinking about yourself, but you've got to remember that there's probably all sorts of things going on at the other end for that person. And I was a journalist, I worked in media, I was on the receiving end of a lot of these kinds of pitches, and it was never because I like if I said no to things, sometimes it wasn't necessarily because I thought it was a terrible thing. It was like it didn't fit, or it didn't work for the magazine that month, or it wasn't to do with this, like there's so many reasons why someone would be saying no. So it's just really good to bear that in mind. It's a really good point. And I love the idea that you're just always being surprised. That's all really cool.
I think it's important
to
understand that it's not just all about you, that what's going out there you just don't know.
And but the more you can put yourself out there, the more opportunities are going to come back to you.
And I think you feel better, right? If you start doing it, and you've got to grow in confidence and get better at it, and that's the only way to do it, really. Take the step.
Yeah. So you also talk about the right audience being better than any audience. So could you sort of take us through that a little bit? Explain what you mean by that.
This goes back to a prevalent PR myth. I actually have a series of posts on social media where I bust 20 of the top PR myths. And this is one of the big ones where people always seem to believe that bigger is better. This is why the general mindset framework is to always go after major high profile platforms, do the talk show circuit, do the mainstream media, all of that, because these guys, reach millions of households online and on TV and everything. It's like people go into it thinking, think about how many readers I can get through that. On paper, it sounds great because they reach so many people. But when you really drill down to the nuts and bolts of it, a lot of these high profile outlets are very generalized. So they'll focus on any number of things, and their demographic is so wide that a lot of these folks are going to be paying attention at different points for different reasons. Just because they are fans of that outlet, they are viewers or readers or listeners of that outlet, doesn't mean that your particular story or that your particular pitch is going to resonate with them. And that is the draw for a lot of folks, is the numbers game. They get sucked into the fact that there's all these people that they can reach and everything. And I'm always telling them, it's a huge audience, but it might not be the right audience for what it is that you're trying to do. Because if somebody is, for example, paying attention to a late night talk show, or like for one of my favorites, they're watching Graham Norton, let's say, out of the UK, they're not really going to be expecting a romance novelist to show up as one of the people on stage there, right? It's going to throw off the vibe of the show. It's going to throw off the vibe of, maybe what a lot of people are looking for. So, it pays to really do your research into where are the people that are actually interested in what I have to share and what I have to say actually spending their time. Like that's really, really key. And that's not to say that there aren't any romance fans in that audience, but you're banking on there being thousands upon thousands when for that time slot, for that particular day, you might not get anybody, right? Because you just don't know. Whereas if you were to go on a podcast run by a mom entrepreneur, and she's interested in having authors on there that are also, romance novelists who are also parents, much higher percentage of her audience is going to listen to your story and maybe get inspired and go, you know what, like, she's a stay-at-home mom with 2 kids and she wrote a book and everything. I might be able to do the same thing. So I think, as tough as it can be, getting sucked into, like, there's a couple million people paying attention to this outlet really does not tell you the full story of whether or not they're actually right for you and your project.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
It does.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No point in chasing your tail in the wrong direction when you could be sort of, niching down a bit. I think that makes total sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, I think, is also, I don't know if I've written it down, so you must have said it, was don't take it personally. Like a lot of the stuff that we take a lot of stuff personally when we're writers, and we, people not wanting to read our book or whatever. But so how do you have any advice for that? Just how not to do that?
I focus on, because I've worked with a mindset coach myself, and I understand kind of, when imposter syndrome comes up, stress, anxiety. I focus on really counseling my clients to focus on abundance and gratitude. And within that, in helping them develop mantras for that, I always say, focus on how far you've come. We go into these kinds of creative endeavors understanding that what we write, what we create is not for everyone. And the last thing you want to do is get into that pitfall where you're trying to write for everybody else, because the moment you start doing that, you lose sight of your own vision. So I always remind them that the same thing goes for marketing and for PR. Yeah, you're probably going to have people that are romance fans that may not be fans of how you've incorporated everything, how you've built that framework. But look at the audience you already have. That is already proof positive that you have people that support you, that will buy your books, and that will sing your praises from the rooftops and share everything every time you put out a new promo, a sale, whatever it is. It's one of the reasons why I hear a lot from authors who are also leaning towards indie publishing, but have already self-published beforehand. And the big topic among them, for folks that are trying to find agents and publishers, is the objection that they hear that something's not marketable. So I sit back and I say to them, yeah, to who? Because really what you are banking on there is the opinion of one agent, the opinion of one publishing company, and that, the audience you've built completely flies in the face of that.
Yeah.
So for anybody that gets stuck on that, I always say to them, who's driving the train here? Who's actually, building the business? Who's actually releasing the book?
Yeah.
It's you, and you've already proven that you have an audience for it. So don't let anybody else tell you any different, because that, to quote the Big Lebowski, is just your opinion, man. I mean, really, that is really what it is. And I am not a fan of seeing great authors that I know be stymied by that.
Yeah.
Because it's not about appealing to everybody. It's about appealing to the right people. And the question of, what are all the different ways I can incorporate into this to help me get in front of the right people?
Yeah.
Because while, you're not going to appeal to everybody, there's going to be people out there that love it, because you already have some of those people.
Yeah.
And what are they doing? They're helping you out by promoting it to the people that they think would love it. Right? So I think it just really comes down to recognizing how far you've come, being like celebrating the abundance of what you have and where you're at in the process, because not everyone can sit down and write a book, right? And also being able to show gratitude towards that, celebrate, you know, where you are, how far you've come. And I think not enough of the authors I work with and the folks I talk to spend enough time doing that.
Yeah.
Because so much of it is focused on, you know, I've got one book out now, I've got to work on the other one, or, you know, this one's with my editor, so I got to write book number 3. And they never stop to really celebrate how far they've come. Even the authors that, like, I've seen getting interviews and everything, it feels good to them for about 5 minutes, and then it's on to the next thing. And
So true.
I say, I'm like, you know, really, there is nothing wrong with taking time out and celebrating how far you've come. Treat yourself. Take a break for the afternoon, you know, grab a glass of iced tea and treat yourself to some cake or something, because not everyone can do this.
Yeah.
And you need to recognize that the fact that you are doing it means something. You know, this is not a time to downplay it. And I mean, I don't think you should throw a party every time you get an interview, but acknowledge it, you know, like acknowledge it and just say, like, hey, you know, I did that.
Yeah,
Love
that's
that.
awesome.
Yeah,
I love that
so
too.
awesome. That's a great
Yeah.
way to wind things up, I think,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah,
On
yes.
that note.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for that, Lilian. That's an inspiring way to.
It was.
We're going to fly you to New Zealand and you're going to move in with me. Okay?
Yeah, that's not creepy at all.
Not creepy.
So if someone wants to find out more about PR, about you, about what they can do for their writing career, where do they go? What's the best place to find you, Lilian?
The best place would be on Instagram at Lilian Sue, copywriter PR, all one word and one L as well. I'm on there, as I say, almost every single day of the week, talking to folks and, you know, sharing amazing indie author news. I've been an ARC reader and a beta reader myself, and just, you know, always there to support the community however I can.
Awesome. That's so fantastic. Thank you so much.
Fantastic interview.
Yeah. And where can we be found, Shah?
We can be found at an exciting new place at Spa Girls Podcast on patreon.com. So I'm going to give us a little pitch for that one there. And thank you to those of our patrons that are already supporting us. We really appreciate you. And come and join our community there. We would love to have you on board.
Awesome.
Nice.
Thank you all for listening to another episode of the Spa Girls podcast. We've loved having you here with us, and we will be back again next week. But for now, farewell.
Bye.
Well, bye.
Bye.